7th graders, we're going to go through the first lesson of chapter 1. And in pre-algebra, we are going to be doing a lot of letter math. Okay? That's what I know you used to call it when you were in 2nd grade. Mrs. Degner called it letter math. Letter math means that we're going to be using letters to represent numbers. And specifically, we use a letter called a variable because we, just by looking at the expression it's called, the letter can stand for more than one number in an expression. And so we either have to figure out what the number is, or we will use the variable to put in different values for the letter to find answers. What we call a function. We just did this in 2nd grade. I did this on Friday. We did using a function machine. You would put in a value, and then the function machine would maybe add 9 to it, or multiply it by 3. And so these are examples of what are called expressions. When you can put a number in for a letter and get a different answer depending on what the number is. So 2 terms that we need to make sure that you know: a variable, letter that stands for a number, and an expression, which is like a math phrase. Okay? Now, when selecting variables, you often select a letter that makes sense in the problem that we're doing. So if we were finding the number of yards in, let's say, 60 feet, okay? If we were looking for the number of yards, we could say that there are y yards, and use the letter y. There are y yards in 60 feet, because we don't know it without doing the calculation. But we select the letter y because it represents yards. We oftentimes select a letter based on the first word in the problem that we're doing. Okay? Now, there are some that you want to stay away from, though. There are some ones to watch out for. For example, using a capital letter I looks like a 1, doesn't it? So you got to be careful with using the letter I, or a lowercase l would also look like the letter 1, or sorry, the number 1. Using the letter x. When we are writing a multiplication expression, there are a few ways that you can write the multiplication. Like 3.n means to multiply, or 3 parentheses n. But it's not good to write 3xn and use x for times. Do you remember why? Yes?
It looks like 3 times x times n.
Yes, because x is also a letter, and if we are using letters in our expressions, then that could be confused for the letter x. So then it says 3 times x times n instead of 3 times n. Anytime you put a letter next to a number, right next to it, it means multiply. It means times. And so you've got to be careful with, and don't use the letter x for times anymore. Use either a dot, or use parentheses, or just put the number right next to the letter from now on, okay? Let's look at some expressions from your book. Turn to page 4. On page 4, it gives you these terms, variable and variable expression, and it gives you some examples. So you can see those. And then go over to page 5. And you can see that the word phrase is written next to some of the ones that I wrote down. So here's an example of an addition expression. The sum of y and 9, or 9 more than y. Now, when you look at that one, 9 more than y, when you read those words, you can see that the 9 is being added to the y, not y being added to the 9. So when you read the words, you have to sometimes figure out, what amount am I going to start with, Bella? If it's 9 more than y, how much do you have? And then how much are you adding to it? In that phrase. Krista? 9 more than y. Right, you're adding 9 to the amount of y. So what's the starting amount? Y is the starting amount. Yep. The words will tell you the amount that you have, and then the amount that you are either adding to it or taking away from it. Okay? For less than a number n. The second one is for less than a number n. So are we starting with n and taking away 4? Or are we starting with 4 and taking away n? Look at that second one. 4 less than a number n. The second one in the green box. On page 5. 4 less than the number n. Find the green box. 4 less than the number n. So that tells us we're starting with n or 4. Starting with n and taking away 4. Finding 4 less than that. Okay? Does that make sense? 4 less than n. So we know we have n first. The next one, a number z times 3. Notice they did not use the letter x to write that one. A number a divided by 12. And there's 2 ways to write division. What's one way to write division? Aiden?
A divided by 12, like next to each other.
Right. Not next to each other like variable. Whoops. Not next to each other like a variable. That was our function machine in 2nd grade. But a divided by 12. So this is the traditional way that you wrote divided by. But what's another way to write division? Kaden?
You say like the A over 12.
A over 12, yes. A over 12, and we know that this is also a way to write division. This is the dividend, and this is the what? What's the other part of a division equation or expression? There's the dividend and the divisor. Yes, divisor. And so we just read this top to bottom. A divided by 12. Okay? You could write it with a slash as well. This means division. A divided by 12. Okay? 5 times the quantity 4 plus a number c. Those are oftentimes confusing. But we know that it's 5 times the quantity 4 plus the number c. So you can put it together that way. And then look for something that would put these two together first. If we wanted to add these two, we'd have to put parentheses around it first. Do you know why? Then we'd know to do the addition first. Yep. So 5 times, and then the quantity of 4 plus the number C. And then they wrote that one this way in your book. Okay? Go to the quick check at the bottom of the page. Here's an example of how you would use this in real life. So, you're buying bagels at the store and they cost 50 cents each. Write a variable expression for the cost of B bagels. So if you bought one bagel, it would cost how much? 50 cents. And 2 bagels would cost $1. And 3 bagels would cost
150.
150.
And then 250, then 3.
Right. Now, how can we write a variable expression for this? With B bagels. B times 50 cents, right. So we're multiplying it by 50 each time. B times 50 cents. Or how would we write it in algebra with the number first? Right. So 0.50 and then just the letter B. Okay? Now, either both of these are correct. This way, I know that you're all interested in writing less. Making your answers as short as possible.
Yeah.
So this is how you should write it. Okay? This is the shortcut method. Go to page 6. Your assignment is on page 6. Now, what I want you to do is 7. Let's see. Let's do 8 through 22 evens, I guess. We've got 5 minutes to work here. 8 through 22 evens.
No.